Greetings, everyone. This is Jed Schlackman, and in the current video, I'll be speaking about the topic of astrotheology. Astrotheology being the concept or paradigm in which theology, so religious belief systems or traditions, are connected to astronomical and astrological phenomena, astronomical or astrological sciences in a sense. So presenting symbolism of natural, earthly, and celestial cycles and phenomena, sort of encoding those through stories and characters in the religious writings and religious mythologies in a sense. So for those that are new to this topic, I encourage you to read some reference books on this subject. There's an increasing number of those that have been published in the last couple of decades. Astrotheology looks at multiple religions, so it's kind of an interreligious examination of these traditions and an underlying body of symbolism that you can find looking through the multiple religions. As an example, here's a book by Akarya S. And actually her name was Deborah Murdoch, but this was her pen name, Akarya, as a teacher per se. So this book, Sons of God, focuses primarily on these three major religions. So you have Christ, Buddha, and Krishna. And of course, as you can guess by the title, she sees each of them as a sun god character whose myths and stories about that character include many references to the actual sun. So regardless of whether there's a human physical person involved in creating those religious traditions and stories, there's a layer of the mythology there that was actually meant to represent the actual sun and to tell a story about cycles of nature, about the seasons, etc. Also about the grand processional cycle, which is close to 26,000 years as the Earth and the sun go through the galaxy. There's a certain shift that's occurring of ages, so that has to do with the signs of the zodiac. So that's where the idea of the age of Aquarius, the age of Pisces, etc. are presented. And in these different religions, you'll find symbolism that very logically and reasonably can be interpreted as referring to those particular celestial phenomena, not merely to a story about physical people or tribes, etc., but actually something more symbolic. So I mentioned the book here, Sons of God, and another well-known book by the same author is The Christ Conspiracy, the greatest story ever sold. And you can see on the cover there, she shows the Christian symbol of the cross in the middle of the 12 signs of the zodiac. So in that analysis, the 12 disciples actually were symbolic of the signs of the zodiac and the sun moving through those 12 signs in a solar year. Another interesting author who explores more about the exoteric and esoteric aspects of religion. So the social guidance and moral codes, etc., being the exoteric or external layer that guides people to live their lives in a way that's socially beneficial and more harmonious, while at the same time there being an esoteric level that includes the astronomical and scientific information as well as deeper metaphysical symbolism. So in that context, things like the sun and the moon and the planets can relate to archetypal energies or attributes to things like the conscious and subconscious mind. So there is another spiritual component as well, aside from the exoteric, religious, moral code component. There's a deeper spiritual psychology that you can explore with the same symbolism. So it's as though there are multiple layers of meaning in religious writings, and depending on what level of understanding you have, what keys you've been given to interpret or decipher or decode things, you might see completely different things in it relative to what another person sees in those same writings or scriptures. So here's a few of the books on the astrological foundation of the Christ myth, which also includes other religions in it. The author is Malik Jabbar. So this one is book 4 in the series he did. And you could see on the cover he's showing the shift there between Pisces and Aquarius. So Jesus Christ was often depicted with the fish sign, and that represents Pisces. So he was representing, in that level of interpretation, this age of Pisces that began approximately 2,000 years ago relative to where we are here in our current time. Here's another book in his series. So this was the first book in that series. Here's book 2. There's a bit of glare here, so I don't know how well you can see that front cover. But on this one, he's talking a little bit more about some of the Old Testament stories. And he's showing the circle with the sun, and then there's a fall equinox and spring equinox. There's actual physical locations in the Bible, such as Egypt, Israel, the Promised Land. And he's putting all this into this symbolic storyline. So those are kind of interesting to read, to consider this other level of meaning that's present in religious texts and traditions across cultures. So you'll find very similar storylines in different religions in different parts of the world, in cultures that you would think had no actual connection or contact with each other, yet they're presenting the same type of story, just using perhaps different characters and different historical tales related to their own culture. So in the Christian religion, it's events happening in this area, Israel and Egypt. In the Hindu and Buddhist traditions, they have Krishna and Buddha, and the stories are occurring in their region of Asia, but you'll find some very similar aspects of the plot, very specific things that seem to match up that make you wonder what's the real story behind these stories. What's it actually trying to relate or tell? So with that understanding, we can consider that religions are not necessarily what they appear to be on the surface. They have levels of information encoded within them that the ordinary person might not perceive, which were designed to share information with people who are initiated into a more esoteric part of the religion, into a mystery school or a secret society per se, into some priesthood that carried this scientific and more esoteric knowledge, and in some cases exploited or abused that knowledge to control the masses, to manipulate or exploit the masses in some way. And this continues to occur, of course, in the present time, where you have people who consider themselves to have secret knowledge, and they're having influential roles in our civilization and keeping information hidden from the common person, from the rest of the population, and using that difference in knowledge to exert power. There's a well-known phrase that knowledge is power. So for people to have power over other people, one way to do that is to have knowledge that the other people don't have that same knowledge. So that gives you some form of advantage or leverage. And this has been happening a lot in human civilization. And it's part of why we have these big power differentials persisting. You have some form of overt or covert caste systems in society where there's one layer that keeps itself in some position above the other layers of society and maintains that system over time. So if we want to overcome that power differential, we ultimately need to overcome that information differential so that there isn't that imbalance there, so that everyone has the same amount of awareness, same empowerment within their consciousness, so they're not easily manipulated or misled by others. For those that are part of a religion, what I'm suggesting is not to discard the moral principles or ideals that you've been learning and following. Those have value. Those help us interact with other human beings in healthier ways. It brings greater trust into human groups and human organizations, etc. So I'm not discounting the value of being a moral or ethical person, of having those benevolent ideals. What I am suggesting is that there are other layers of information within these religions, and some of what's taught on the surface level is not literally accurate. It's not necessarily a true historical story. It's meant to be more symbolic, to relay information on another level. I appreciate each of you for taking your time to view this video. Those that are interested in holistic health and wellness, I invite you to visit my website at phinsights.com. That's phinsights.com. For now, I'm wishing everyone a wonderful day. Namaste.